What's going on, everybody? My name is Enoch. This is my brother James. You're now watching and listening to the Blood Brothers podcast. Let's go. Welcome back to the Blood Brothers podcast, everybody. Before we get going, y'all know how we like to do this. We bow our heads. Our Father in heaven, we thank you for this day. We thank you for this moment. Use us right now. In Jesus' name, amen.
A to the men.
Yo, Ak, what's good, bro?
Chilling, man. Just out here about to say the mission statement like we always do.
Go ahead, talk to him.
All right, cool. Empowering men to become leaders in society under God's law. Consequently, men, women, and other children will understand the foundations of what it is to be a real man.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, my boy. It's good.
We in this relationship series.
It's been pretty good.
I'm loving it. We've been in the marriage for the past 2 weeks. We had to do it for 2 weeks. We had to make it 2 parts.
It was. Marriage is a very intricate, complicated organism that God created, and it needs to be addressed with that sincerity and authority.
Yeah.
Right. So that way it's successful. But I agree.
That being said, we were not supposed to touch marriage today.
We weren't.
We were supposed to start the next part of relationships, parenting.
Yeah, man.
But then we was thinking, and shout out to people that have been hitting me up. My man Mike, Charlie, they actually was asking me about parenting questions I was going to throw in. But we're going to have to wait on that.
Yeah,
we're going to do it next week. We got one more thing we need to talk about in marriage.
Okay.
We talked about the benefits and we pushing y'all to get married. But what's the good in that if we don't talk about the difficulties in marriage?
Okay.
Because we want y'all to be married and we want y'all to stay married.
That's the key.
So we can't just jump to the next thing. We really want to touch all aspects of marriage. So today we're going to focus on the difficulties, the challenges of marriage.
Yeah.
And how we can move past them and not get stuck.
I like that. Challenge. When I think of challenges, I always think of improvement and it's not a negative word. It's kind of like consequences. You know what I mean? Challenges has the same energy. When you think of a challenge, think of triumph, think of overcoming. And as long as you keep that perspective, especially within your marriage, and don't let the challenge become the focal point, instead let's think solution based, and you'll overcome anything that you and your spouse could go through. But this is a sidebar. One thing that we have to say before we even speak on challenges is there's one challenge that is unacceptable. Adultery.
Oh yeah. That is so unacceptable.
That's that challenge where we won't touch on the details of it. Yeah. But we'll definitely just let you guys know the challenges we're speaking of are very
minute in a sense.
Minute, fixable, communication driven, solution based driven. When you're talking about cheating on your spouse, whether it's male or female, now you're talking about breaking covenant, which is a whole different type of challenge.
And I feel like if these issues aren't talked about first, these would lead up to that adultery stage. So us starting here, we don't have to touch that, because if you understand this area, it'll keep you away from that.
Exactly. You operate under the principles of success in your marriage, and then that specific topic will never be an argument, and it should never be an argument. But that was a little side note that we need to throw in there. So just in case anybody gets confused on when we say challenges, that we're talking about very surface level challenges. Anything deep rooted as far as that, counseling.
Definitely some counseling.
Rethink what you're doing, my man, or female. But let's get into it. I
say we start on. Well, this is what I was saying to you before, and I want to get into this. I feel like we should start on this. I say that when you get married to the person, in a sense, I've heard it before, but I didn't understand it until I got married.
Okay.
That when you marry the person, you marry pretty much family and all the other things that attach to them.
Okay. Explain
And
that
I
a
didn't
little
really
more.
understand it
Mm-hmm.
until you realize it's different aspects as far as their upbringing,
Okay.
their culture,
Mm-hmm.
how they were raised, how did they see things in their home.
Okay.
Also, even in a sense, the physical, because the person, the family members, the mom, dad, brother, sister, they're still around.
Okay.
So you still have a battle within the marriage with that. If they have certain suggestions or things like that,
Mm-hmm.
that's also a battle in its own.
Okay. Okay.
How do you look at that?
I feel like this.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, that's true to a certain extent.
Mm-hmm.
The way I view it is when a person gets married and it's the family's influences. So you'll say it's one person to one person. That
Mm-hmm.
new marriage is a brand new family.
Yeah,
I don't
exactly.
believe in the
Yeah.
whole that's a united family. Like my family is
Yeah.
your family and it's all one big happy family. Like I
Mm-hmm.
don't believe in that specifically,
Yeah.
just because when I view other cultures and number one, above all of that, when I look at people's lifestyle. So
Mm-hmm.
if let's say my in-law is divorced and
Mm-hmm.
my parents are divorced, right?
Yeah.
I'm not looking for them as a foundation of success.
Mm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to connect two negatives and try to make mine's a positive.
Yeah.
I'd much rather say, you know what, that's a separate situation. That's a separate situation. But the only family that truly matters is the one that we created.
Mm-hmm.
Because ultimately, I'm not responsible for what happened with your parents. I'm not responsible for what happened for my parents. I'm only responsible for what happens within my marriage and my family. So that comes first and foremost. I think a lot
Mm-hmm.
of times people, they say, oh, that's my family, but they miss the fact of what is the most important. I don't want to say the most important part of your family, but what is priority and who
Yeah.
is priority?
In a
And
sense, it is the most important, to be honest.
yeah, it is the most part, but you don't,
Yeah.
some people take that as, but yeah, that's my mom, that's my dad, that's my brother. Yeah, that's great. But at the
Mm-hmm.
end of the day, this right here, what we created, this is the only thing we're accountable for. And for
Yeah.
me, that's very important for me to take that approach, because I have a lot of burden on my shoulders when it comes to making sure my family is successful. As far as your family, your brother, your sister, and vice versa for my family, that has nothing to do with me. So
Mm-hmm.
I get what you're
Mm-hmm.
saying, though, but
Yeah.
I think that's what becomes a challenge, because I don't know if people know how to separate it.
That's true. I think that's the problem. And that's why how in the first episode we talked about the biblical stance on it. It says this is why a man leaves his home and becomes one with his wife.
Mm-hmm.
So even in a sense, you may look at it as disrespect, but it's still biblical. Like,
It's law. It's
yeah,
law, and there's a
yeah.
reason, why that is approached in that aspect.
Mm-hmm.
I don't ask for advice for what's the best way to say? If a man is on the street and homeless, no offense, but I'm not gonna ask him how to get a house.
Mm.
You
Yeah,
understand? And it's not a
yeah.
knock versus anybody, but if your family doesn't exhibit a healthy lifestyle, or they can't prove that they have mastered, or even in the process of having a healthy marriage,
Mm-hmm.
healthy marriage,
Mm-hmm.
then no, I don't want no advice from you. And honestly, I really don't want. I wouldn't want my partner coming to you for advice.
Exactly, and that's why I say that too. To if you're married, you shouldn't be going to single people for advice
True. Or divorced.
because yeah, it's a. I mean, divorce you can only if that person has taken accountability and has grown from the
Okay,
situation. But
I
if
can
they're
respect that.
bitter,
Oh yeah,
if
I can
they're,
respect that.
if they're bitter
Hmm.
though, that's someone you want to stay from.
True indeed.
Because if they're bitter, they have some things that they're gonna say to you that's gonna strike something in you that wasn't there.
They birth new seeds into your mind,
Yeah.
and they water it with their negativity,
Mm-hmm. That's
right?
true.
So
That's true.
and I think we can get in from there. We can get into the cultural influences
Mm-hmm.
of an individual and how you're basically your upbringing, the cultural influence, and you're gonna bring it into a marriage.
Mm-hmm.
So So I'll give me an example. I was never the type to hold my tongue. I'm not a person that I believe in teaching vocalization to my
Mm-hmm.
kids, to and my wife, to anybody. I believe that people, you have a voice and you're supposed to use it. Now, I'm not saying be disrespectful,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm a firm believer in you need to learn to communicate open and honestly without it being disrespectful, if that's the
Mm-hmm.
best way to put it. But what I've
Mm-hmm.
learned through time is that the cultures, and you kind of taught me this, but like
Yeah.
cultures, they teach their kids how to just be mutes,
Yeah.
right?
100%.
And then what happens is, now if you taught your child how to be a mute and they get into a relationship with somebody who's vocal, now it becomes a thing where it's like, oh, this is disrespectful or whatever. And it's like, hold on, why
Mm-hmm.
aren't you speaking is the question.
Exactly. Exactly. And that was pretty much my culture growing up.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people can speak from that if they was in a Caribbean home where it's not a lot of talking back. There's not a lot of your opinion being heard or
Mm-hmm.
said. Even if it's said, it's not heard.
Mm.
And the good thing for me is I was hard headed.
Mm-hmm.
So I always fought that.
Yeah.
But it still had a hold on me in
Mm-hmm.
a sense because even though I would say certain things, I knew that there's a limit. Even
When
as
you
I
all
got
right, so
older.
let me ask you this, right? When
Mm-hmm.
you say there's a limit, what does that
Mm-hmm.
consist of? Because it's a thing where it's like, if you didn't get your full
Mm-hmm.
opinion out,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Then how is that even effective, or how is
It
that
wasn't.
healthy?
Yeah, because once you said something and you got yelled at for that initial opinion, you wasn't coming back with anything else. You just accepted it.
Mm,
So there was no real communication. I wouldn't call that communication. If
mm,
I say something to you and you say something that pretty much disregard what I said and I can't say anything else after that, there's no real communication. So now
mm,
you have the power over the conversation and over all decisions.
mm-hmm.
So in that aspect, I still was in a place where I couldn't really have an opinion or say what I wanted, even though in a sense I was hard headed.
Okay, no, I get that, and I think we're gonna touch more on that aspect when we get into parenting.
Yeah,
But to
yeah.
connect it to marriage, you have to realize, if you're brought up in that type of environment, when you do marry someone,
Mm-hmm.
communication is key,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if you have one party that knows how to communicate and is willing to communicate, but another party who shuts down, now what
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna do, you're gonna end up bumping heads,
Yep.
because a
Yep.
lot of things don't make sense. So for me, I don't just, and this has been me across the board, I don't just
Mm-hmm.
listen to people. Nobody can
Mm-hmm.
just tell me something and I'm gonna accept it. That's just not how
Mm-hmm.
it goes.
Yeah.
Not in a disrespectful fashion, but I believe in validity when you speak. So
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't matter your position, it doesn't matter what you own, it doesn't matter who you are. Everybody's human. I'm a firm believer that everybody's created in God's image, not just me, not just you, not just my
Mm-hmm.
spouse, everybody. So I treat everybody with that same dignity and worth.
Yeah.
So what happens when I see people who I just want to maybe marginalize, and especially
Yeah.
like to hear you say that, like for me, that, like, I'm not gonna front, like, as you think, I was annoying me, like, I was getting bothered by it, because it's like,
Mm-hmm.
yo, you're telling this child that, you know, your opinion basically doesn't matter. So you
Yep.
grow up believing that, but then
Mm-hmm.
now you have to be the head of a family,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Or for a female, you have to be the co-head of a family too, right?
Yeah.
You
Exactly.
guys are ruling together. But one thing that I always play in my mind is that it's this slavery mentality.
Yeah.
Slaves were taught to be seen and not heard.
Mm-hmm.
Vocalization was against the rules in the slave world, and then
Yeah.
parents go implement that into their children, and then now those children go get married and they adopt those same philosophies,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where you'll come into a lot of communication issues.
Yeah.
I try to figure out the balance between disrespect and
Mm-hmm.
effective communication.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's where my wife and my mom bumped heads.
Okay.
So I can speak from a personal aspect because my wife, she grew up with just her mom
Hmm.
and she's the oldest. So they always had real communications, and she was responsible for certain things in the house.
Mm-hmm.
So when we first got married and we were still living in my parents' house,
Mm-hmm.
her and my mom bumped heads because of little things. And my wife, she speaks her mind, and my
As she
mom,
should.
yeah, she speaks her mind on situations. And my mom, it was like a shock in a sense,
Mm-hmm.
because she's not used to that.
Mm-hmm.
And once she saw that I wasn't taking her side, then it's like, oh, so y'all all against me now or something?
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't that. It's just my family is more important. And I can say that I will choose my family over my mom. And that's hard for some people to say.
Very true.
That's very hard, but I can say that. But even now, my mom say, just remember, you're my only son. I mean, not only son, but I'm your only mom and all this. I'm like, I know that's cool, but this is my only family.
Exactly.
This is my family.
Exactly.
So there's no comparison.
It's not even close. You can be the only mom to the day you die, and you will be. But at the end of the day, you have to remember it. When you're watching or you're steward over a family or marriages or whatever the case may be, as a man, even as a woman, you have to protect that nucleus, meaning you, your husband or your wife, and your kids. There is no uncle, brother, sister, cousin, nothing that is more important than that. No friend, no one.
Yep.
So what'll happen is if you have one person that's doing that and the other person doesn't possess the ability because of how they were brought up, you're gonna run into real problems.
Oh yeah, real problems,
real issues. And one thing I'll even say about myself, like I'm constantly trying to be a better husband, friend, father. So for me, it's always a battle if it's not a mutual thing, right? It should never be one-sided. So I can admit I've never had a good male role model in my life that has taught me how to be a husband, taught me how to be a friend, taught me how to be, the things that I desire to be. But because I'm willing to admit it, that means I'm always going to work towards becoming better. What I realize is the lack of accountability, or the lack of what's the best way to put it, the lack of self-worth that I think that culture puts on their children, because they don't give them a voice. It makes them struggle as adults. And what it does is it just recreates the system that was already poison to them, and they do it subconsciously.
That's true.
Right? And it's like, hold on a second. You didn't like it when your parents did it, but you're doing it now.
It becomes breeded into you. You don't even notice.
Exactly. Until someone else comes and it's like, yo, that doesn't make sense. But even to acknowledge it, it's a fight. It's a struggle, because they'll look at you like, let's say me, I'm like I'm the outlaw, right? And it's like, no, I'm not the outlaw. I'm the adult, right? I'm the person that is telling you like, yo, there's something wrong with that. And you have to have a voice and you have to speak up. That's not optional. Even if you're not married, having a voice and being able to communicate effectively is healthy. Healthy dialogue is improvement, self-improvement, and it helps your mentality.
Yeah, because even in the sense where with my parents, when my wife, we went and visited North Carolina, when we talked about it and we decided like, yo, this is the best move for our family, my parents wasn't accepting of that. And I could have easily let them, deter me and change my mind. They're like, why are you going? You're in New York. All your family's in New York. What's in North Carolina? There's nothing there for you. You letting her take you over there? And I'm like,
sounds crazy.
Yeah. And I'm like, yo, this is my wife. This is my family. What do you mean I'm letting her? Like, we making the decision together. And once I saw it, I was like, you know what? This is the best decision for me. I need to go because I need to get out of this toxic relationship with marriage and parents. And like, I started to understand like, yo, this is why you're supposed to leave with your wife and become one. And just imagine if I didn't go, wouldn't have a house right now. I'd be in a totally different place.
You to be in a total different mental space. But I would say this to parents too, right? It's your job as a parent, and this is obviously going to continue on as we talk about parents, but you should never put your child in a situation where you're making them choose between wife or husband
Oh
and
yeah.
family.
Oh yeah.
Right. And what you should be is a support system. So for me, as an example, like I was on my own for 3 years. I had my own apartment. I was doing my own thing. I lived on my own. But when me and my wife, we had Christian, I'm like, okay, it makes more sense. We want to buy a house. Cool. We'll live with my mother-in-law, whatever the case may be. But instead of it being, I don't even want to say a healthy relationship, what it did
Yeah.
is it exposed the cultural differences.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And what I started to realize is that parents or in-laws, whatever you want to call it, they misconstrue their position in the marriage.
Yeah.
Right.
100%. That was the issue.
Granted, look, and this goes, I guess, for both parents, but granted, yes, it was, your mom's house and it's my
Yeah.
mom's, but at the end of the day, I'm still an adult, right? And the woman that you're looking at as a child, that's still my wife, right?
Yeah.
That's an adult to me. That's my wife. That's your daughter, but that's my wife. Her title as my wife is more significant than her title as your daughter, right? So what should be done as parents is you should be empowering your children to become leaders and speaking and vote. So when they do take that next step and become wives or husbands, you know what type of product you produced, right? So it should be easy to say, you chose him, he chose you, great. I know you have wonderful decision-making skills because I bred that into you. That now is not my opposition, that is my son, right? And I will treat him as such. But me being oblivious, I'm not gonna front, I didn't realize that even that analogy is tainted because I don't know how a parent views their children.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So the cultural differences is so drastic that it just became a bumping heads type of process. Right. And I agree, like, you are supposed to leave. I think for people who are about to get married or got married or whatever the case may be, if you're in a situation where you can do it independently, you should just stick to independently. Even if it seems like it makes more sense, financially or whatever the case may be, sometimes or most of the time, I would say your peace of mind is more important than any number that you can put on it.
Yeah. Putting your marriage in jeopardy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Having those negative influences
You never want to
that.
do that. You never want to let anything compromise your marriage. Like what God put together, like don't let no man break that apart.
100%. And I think too, you have to consider as individuals the process of developing, right? It's hard for me to accept the excuse. Like you're obviously, you tell me certain things, but even that is still hard for me to accept the process. Like you explained it as like the what did you use? Like
the like the low ceiling and the little fishbowl.
Yeah, exactly, the fishbowl.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But even that for me is hard to accept because it's like this, right?
You didn't grow up in it.
It's not that I didn't grow up in it because I kind of had to put myself in that predicament, right? So for me, I was in a fishbowl too, right? But my fishbowl was toxic in the sense of I seen what my father was doing to my mom, right? So that was my ceiling, or that was what I seen, and that's what I was experienced, and that was my experience in the sense of family, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I didn't let that dictate to my mind to a point that I let it override my development, right? And I didn't use it as an excuse to cripple me either.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that because of that, I think that's why it's so hard for me to accept the cultural influence, even though it's real. Don't get it twisted. I get it. It's real.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's only as real as you allow it to be.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say that.
So for you, it was like I had to leave, right? But even if you didn't leave, I could be honest with you, I don't think that even if you stayed there specifically, I get the influences, but your development individually would have pushed you through it. Do you understand?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
and that's why we bumped heads so much.
Exactly. So it's a thing where it's not so much of, oh, my culture was brought up differently or whatever it is that you want to say. Because to me, cultures are mentality, like they dictate to your mentality. So for you
Mm-hmm.
to change your culture, you have to just change your mentality,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
And your mentality can be changed anywhere.
Yeah.
Even if you're in the house that you grew up in, you can still change. It's a personal decision that you make to say, hey, listen, this is not okay. I think the problem where the cultural influences, where you guys, like I guess the Caribbean household
Mm-hmm.
struggle, is that you're taught not to challenge anything.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
So
true. That's
so
true.
so because of that,
That's true.
that whole analogy of, this is my house, so this is how it goes, blah,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
It was never challenged.
Yeah.
It was never challenged, right? So for me, I always look at it, I'm like, yo, granted, yes, this might be your house, this might be your, whatever you want to call it, your
Uh-huh.
kingdom, whatever it is that you want to call it. But at the
Yeah.
end of the day, do you view me as a human, right?
Mm.
Do you view me as the person that God made me?
Mm-hmm.
Because that overrides any philosophy that you could adopt and try to implement on anybody. This is why
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to speaking to people and it comes to relationship, I treat all my relationships very delicately.
Yeah.
So what happens is when those are violated, when I retreat, I'm done. Like there's
Mm-hmm.
no such thing as I want
Mm-hmm.
to fix it. I listen, I understand, I get it, but I want no
Yeah.
part to you.
Uh-huh.
You understand what I mean when I say that? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. And even within that culture, that when you don't say anything, it builds up inside, right?
exactly.
And then when you have that mentality and that mindset, when you do eventually find someone, you get married and you have issues, you're never dealing with that exact issue because you've been holding things in. So
Mm-hmm.
now, because of the mindset of how you grew up, you can't say certain things. Then it gets to a point where everything comes out. Because there'll be times where I've seen my brother and sister, it would just blow up in the crib.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because you're holding in so much
Mm-hmm.
and it gets to a point where you can't anymore, and then you explode.
Mm.
And if you take that into a marriage, it's bound to fail because you're not handling issues as they come. You're
Mm-hmm.
holding things in, and then you hit the wall.
No, I listen, I agree. And I think even when you say that as far as holding things in, the sad part about it is, and I really can't wait to get to parenting, but
Mm-hmm.
people are raising kids to be adults, to be kids all over again. Right.
Hmm.
And I say that, and when I say that, I mean that with the most respect. But
Mm-hmm.
I view myself as a man. I conduct myself as a man. I speak as
Mm-hmm.
a man. I think as a man.
Mm-hmm.
Period.
Yeah.
Like it don't matter who you are in anybody's life.
Yeah.
That philosophy in my mind of who I am in God's eyes, that is the defining moment in my mentality and the foundation that I live by.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't make me better than anybody, but it doesn't make anybody better than anybody at all.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
We're all equals,
Mm-hmm.
regardless of your age. And I just hate, like, it really bothers me when the older generation feels this entitlement or this
Mm-hmm.
demand of respect when they don't provide it.
That's
Right?
true.
And it becomes a thing where it's now you're passing that on to your child, and what you're doing is you're crippling your child, which eventually they're going to get married and it's going to cripple them in their marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And what'll happen is now things that seemed as a normal progression is way slower because they don't understand how
Mm-hmm.
important it is to
Mm.
have your own voice, right? They
Mm.
don't understand the significance of an adult speaking up and imposing that philosophy into their children. Because honestly,
Wow.
when you get married, right, you have your wife. Obviously, we're gentlemen, so we're speaking from that perspective. But you
Yeah.
have your wife, right? Imagine you trying to communicate with your wife a problem, but
Mm-hmm.
you can't even directly identify the problem because you've never addressed problems. Everything's a sweep under the rug. Oh,
Wow.
everything is okay mentality. Now
Wow.
you're gonna adopt that philosophy. You're gonna bring that to your family. So ultimately, through the years, you're just gonna back up, and back up a whole bunch of problems that are never dealt with. And then you're gonna go later on down the line, 10 years down the line, you go, damn, I can't believe my marriage failed. Well, what did you think was going to
Wow.
happen?
Wow.
You get what I'm saying? And
Wow.
that's just the philosophy. It's a philosophy that's embedded in individuals. And I think
Mm-hmm.
we all run into these problems because it's like at the end of the day, you have to question what you're learning.
Yeah.
You cannot just accept things just because, oh, my mom said it or my dad said it.
Yeah.
None of that stuff matters. That
Yeah.
doesn't matter.
Yeah,
Like,
that's true.
like it goes back to even when we were talking about just as far as, okay, but what are you going to do now? Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like when it comes down to the nitty gritty of it, there's no such thing as excuses. What are you going to do? You're going to blame your parents? Like that's, to me, that's not only immature, that's irresponsible, especially as a husband and wife.
Yeah. There comes a point where you have to become you. Like, I get it when you're growing up, the culture that you're around, things that you see, things that influence you. I get that. But there comes a point where you have to say, okay, who am I in all of this? It's like, how can someone in jail change? That's a horrible environment.
Facts.
But yet people in there can change. And why is that? Because they make the decision like, you know what? I see where I'm at right now, but this is not going to dictate who I'm going to be. I'm making decisions like I'm going to continue to work on myself. I'm going to continue to do the things that's going to put me in a better position. And this is why we harp on mentality, because you have to continue to be working on yourself all the time, even if you're married.
Marriage is a lifetime thing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Complacency will be the downfall of your marriage.
Oh, 100%.
Right? And this
100%.
goes across the board. We're speaking from a men's mentality, like a men's perspective, but this goes across the board. Men, women, you know, just husband and wives, right? Because what you have to realize is ultimately, if one party is trying to constantly improve and doing things to better themselves, but you're so complacent and stuck in where you are, now that means that you're staying and they are evolving.
Yeah.
Right? So by the time they look back at you, they go, yo, what were you doing all this time? Where are you? Or the best way to put it is, who are you?
Yeah.
Because how many times do you hear people say, like 10, 15 years down the line, they look at, they're laying with somebody and they go, who are you?
Yeah.
Like who are you? For real. And I can see why that happens, because if one person's growing, the other person's not, it's imbalance. You unequally yoked.
Exactly.
And then ultimately, that's going to be a path for failure. Forgive me, a path for failure. You're just taking the subconscious road to divorce.
Yeah.
Right.
That's simple as that.
Yeah. I mean, realistically, because like I said, struggling with in marital issues or challenges, there's only so many excuses that you can make. Right. And ultimately, I'm not a big excuse maker. So there's nothing that my wife could say to me. There's nothing that anybody can really say to me that I'll accept. Right? I just can't accept it. And they'll say, oh, you know, that's you being harsh or whatever. But like, no. It's not me being harsh. It's me saying, did you look at yourself before you made that excuse? Right? Did you view yourself and go, hey, you know what? I could have made a better decision there.
Yeah.
Or I choose not to let this happen. Because remember, we choose to get married. So you have to choose to better yourself. Exactly. And not for your marriage, for yourself specifically. But you want to be the best version of yourself while you are married. And so that way you can live a happy life.
And that's how marriages grow. If I'm constantly working on myself and my wife is constantly working on ourselves, that's only going to lift up the marriage. Because we understand, okay, you're working on yourself, I'm working on myself. How can it fail?
It can't.
If we're both constantly making a conscious effort, like I'm going to make sure I'm a better husband. I'm going to make sure I'm a better wife. I'm going to make sure this family is going the direction it's supposed to go. How can it fail? You're both on the same page. You're both on the same mission. And that's where the problems start, is when someone's going into a direction and the other person is going into a different direction, and they're still trying to meet at the same place, but it's almost impossible if y'all both going in two different directions.
It's always going to be impossible. Like if you make a slightest adjustment on the 90-degry angle, if you move it slightly, at the end of it, you'll be in Africa. You'll be in Africa. The other person be in I don't even know, United States somewhere.
That's a fact. The slightest.
You have to be aligned. So I guess let's get into another part of one of the challenging marriage, because we set the foundation of the cultural influence and just basically we have to just admit it. That's not enough. That's not enough That's not that. There's no such thing as an excuse. That's not an excuse anymore. We have to just throw that out the window.
Yeah.
You can make the decision to be better. So the next one is let's talk about fighting fair. Arguments, baby.
Yeah, those marital discussions.
As you call them, marital discussions. I call them arguments. But yeah, I love your wording. This is why me and you're friends, because I'll be like, yo, I need better wording. Me, I call them arguments because that's it. And I don't even just call them arguments. I say go to war. I call them war. I say you go to war. And it's not to be mean, but it's just like it's really mental warfare.
Yeah,
it's mental warfare.
It is.
I have to call it what it is. For me personally, other people have different verbiage, but for me, it's mental warfare because at the end of the day, when we're battling with one another, what I realize is that in arguments, there are some rules that you must follow.
Oh yeah.
Right. Number one would have to be stick to the subject, or do your best to stick to the subject.
Yeah.
Right. Respectful communication. Don't ever call your spouse out of their name.
Yeah.
Period. That's never acceptable.
Don't disrespect.
No disrespect. Like, and you should be able to speak. And I don't. All right. Let me ask you. Do you think yelling is disrespectful? Like raising your voice a little bit if it's both parties?
I don't feel like that's effective. I'm not a fan of yelling.
Okay.
Because when you're yelling, there's a difference between if you're passionate about what you're saying,
yes,
and you're under control.
Okay. So if your voice raises as you're speaking,
yeah, if your voice raises, I understand it, but you're passionate. But if it's like, yo, you don't know what you, yeah, but if it's like, no, babe, listen, what I was trying to explain to you is this.
Got you.
That's the difference instead of just outright just shouting at somebody.
No, I get you. I agree with that. I agree with
that.
Yeah. And then the last concept that we'll focus on when fighting fair, we had what was the two we just said? We said
you said no disrespect.
No disrespect.
Staying on topic.
So staying on topic, no disrespect. And the last one I would say is argument. This goes back to our disclaimer. Should never be a character flaw.
Yeah.
And let me specify, because we all have character. We're not saying we're perfect. What we're saying is meaning you should never argue about other women in your relationship or other men.
Yeah.
Right.
That
those arguments don't happen. We already established that from Jump Street. Those arguments are not allowed to happen. No. Right. And that goes into the respect. But we'll get into that. So tell me how you feel about the first one. As far as sticking to topic, yeah.
The sticking to topic, I feel like that also goes back to cultural issues, because if our discussion is you leave the milk out, right? But throughout the previous weeks, you've been having an issue with you don't close the bathroom door. So now that has built up into the milk, and now it's deeper than just milk.
Yeah.
The issue is not just you're talking about milk, but in your mind it's like, yo, and you be leaving the door open, like, whoa. I didn't even know that was the issue. So now we going back and forth and not staying on topic and handling the issue. Now we're jumping back and forth to different topics, and now we're not solving anything because you held something in.
True.
So if I'll be specific. I had a situation where I don't like if I'm gonna do laundry, there's clothes in there. I think I said it before. There's clothes in the laundry washer, and it's not put in the dryer. It happened a few times. Then I went in one time. I got time. I'm like, yo, why she always leaving the man? And then I stopped because I'm always taking myself into.
Always got to take accountability.
Yeah.
What can you change first before you speak?
Exactly. So I started thinking about it. I'm like, yo, I'm getting mad at her off of something I never expressed to her. So then I was like, you know what? I'm upset. I don't need to be, because I never said anything. So then after I went, I was like, yo, babe, I was upset about something. She was like, what happened? I was like, the laundry room. She was like, what are you talking about? I was like, I don't like when I go in the laundry room and I'm putting clothes in the washing machine and there's stuff in there that you didn't put in the dryer. She was like, oh, I had no idea. I was like, I had no idea that bothered you. She was like, I'm going to go down there and move it. She was like, I didn't know. And I'm like, I know you did. And this is why I came to you, because I was really upset about it. And I was about to bring that energy to you. And I shouldn't have, because you had no idea that that bothers me. So within marriages, you got to understand, just because you're married, there's not going to be things that don't annoy you. You're going to get annoyed.
100%.
Things are going to annoy you. Things are going to bother you.
100%.
But you have to understand, I'm here. I'm not going nowhere. So let's figure this thing out. Let me express it to you that this bothers me so that we can fix this. Because now what if I'm holding on to the clothes in the washer, then the bathroom door not closed, then the milk is out, and then all of that coming at one, that's an explosion.
True.
That's true. There's no communication coming out of that.
That's toxic.
Very toxic. So that's why you have to handle the issue at hand.
I love that. And one thing I'll piggyback of what you said is, as far as dealing with the issue at hand, right? This is why you're supposed to always constantly be growing, right? And I say this specifically in this situation because if you had prior issues with your family, I'll give an example. Like I got into it with someone because of a situation where it kind of triggered me, right? It triggered something that bothered me from before, like when I was younger, right? Now, it's not that I didn't deal with the issue. I dealt with the issue. It was the fact that my way of dealing with the issue was I addressed it, right, with the person, but I also snipped ties with the person too because it was too much, right? So for me, when we speak on issues at hand, I think we have to be able to identify, and I believe I'm pretty good at this, identify the principle that is actually bothering you or being violated, right? Because you can have multiple situations that bother you, but it's really just one principle that bothers you, right? So if, let's just say, lying is an issue for you, like I can lie in different ways, right? I can just not say the whole truth. I could say I'm going somewhere and be not going somewhere. I could just tell you a blatant lie. I'm white, right? I can do whatever. But my point is to say, when we say stay on topic, what we really have to get to is the root of the issues. And because people play at surface level a lot, right? It's very surface level things. And I'm not saying that every issue is that deep. But what you want to do is you want to explore what is the root of it. Right? Because for me, when you say, okay, this bothers me, right? It's like, okay, cool. Well, let's specifically say is the issue. The issue is the clothes in the dryer, right? But the root of it could be, you never know. It might be like cleanliness, like
exactly.
Cleanliness, or it could be time. You could be like, it takes me more time to do that.
Being organized.
Organized. Now you can go, okay, well, when you think of organized, what do you think about? You can be like, nah, like I just believe in having a structured, organized house because this is something I want to teach the kids. I don't want the kids to come in. And then you can go deeper into it and go, okay, well, what is it about that part of it that you want to teach kids? I don't ever want my kids to think that dysfunction is okay. That means a lot to me. But you get to the root of the issue. You understand what I mean?
Gives it a deeper understanding.
Exactly. So when you get to that level, now not only will you not repeat the same problem, you'll be able to identify them in different situations. And I think for me, that's why I'm just so in love with learning principles, because it doesn't, I feel like situations dictate to your emotions. Principles remain the same. Right. So if you could just identify what the principle is that bothers you, then just correct the principle and put it back in line with what you want, and then you won't have that problem. But it has to be a mutual thing. Now Kayla could have said, right? For example, this is a good example. You said, okay, the clothes, whatever, right?
Yeah.
You could have said, well, you never told me. Your communication's bad. Right?
Yep.
But she didn't react that way.
Yeah.
She didn't.
Yeah. She made adjustments.
Exactly. She didn't take offense to the fact that you had a problem. And I think we have to be mindful of our ability to accept criticism.
Exactly.
Because not all criticism is bad. Personally, I'm just the type of person, I encourage criticism from the people that are close to me. And I'm okay with that. I'm 100. Anybody who's close to me will know I'm the first person to say when I'm wrong. I'll just admit it. Yo, I was wrong about such and such situation. You know what I mean? But like, I had a situation with one of my friends. He was telling me about his situation with his parents, whatever. And then this was almost a whole year ago. He brought it back up. Like, he didn't even bring it back up to me. I experienced it subconsciously, kind of firsthand, right? And I went right back to him. This was a year and a half later. I'm not joking you. Wow. I said, yo, you remember when I told you was wrong for doing blah, blah, blah? Now, you was right. I get it. I seen it from yo,
Mm.
I'm sorry for saying straight up. No funny, not trying to be funny. And he's like, yo, I told you that. And I say, yo, my bad. I was wrong for that.
Yeah.
Right. But I take pride not in being wrong, but take pride in making things right.
Yeah,
In
making
doing right,
corrections.
making
Mm-hmm.
corrections.
Mm-hmm.
So Kayla could have took that approach with said she could have just went off like, well, you didn't communicate that to me and you want to get mad and
Yeah.
but it's not always about that. Sometimes when people say things, it's
Mm-hmm.
because they just want to see an improvement.
Mm-hmm.
And there should be nothing wrong with that.
And I could have brought that energy out of her by coming at her without saying like, yo, why is it always in there? And then she'd be like, well, you had terrible communication. And then that's the argument starting.
Exactly. But y'all stuck to the problem at hand. And because both of y'all took that accountability up front, right? Even if y'all wanted to have a deeper communication about it, I'm pretty sure the root of it probably was just like cleanliness or whatever it is. And then why is cleanliness so important? And I'm a firm believer in getting, I'm a deep thinker, but I believe everybody should think deeply into their issues if they have issues, right? Because there's nothing that pisses me off more than having a recurring problem. Like the recurring problems will slowly start to pick at your marriage. Slowly start to pick at your marriage because you're like, yo, am I talking for no reason? Right? Am I going through the whole process of trying to be a better husband, better father, better, right? Am I going through that process for you just to ignore what I'm doing? Like, yeah, granted, I'm doing it for me, but at the end of the day, I'm doing it because I know my responsibilities as your husband or as a father or a friend, whatever the case may, whatever the relationship is, right? And what happens when people feel, what is the word I'm trying to say? Unappreciated.
Yeah.
People feel unappreciated, that relationship is bound to fall because no one wants to be in a relationship that you're underappreciated. Right. I feel like that's a toxic environment that you're creating. And I would do this as a side note too. People shouldn't be afraid to admit their flaws, especially to their spouses.
That's true.
Right? Like I can openly tell you, and I mean, obviously I'll tell you, but I'll tell Marital, like, I'm working on my patience. And how long I've been saying it, but when I'm saying I'm working, I mean, I'm really working on. I'm learning how to be more patient. What am I? And you can say, what are you doing to work on your patience? Because I'm a big person. If you tell me, yo, I'm working, but what you doing?
What are you doing?
What are you doing? What are you doing to work on it? Well, for me personally, I'm more mindful of what I'm saying. So if I'm really upset, I won't say anything up front. I'll just give it a second. I might call you like, yo, this how I'm feeling, da da da. I know I think I'm gonna say this, but how do you think I should say it, or whatever the case may be. But even more than that, because I'm making a focused, conscious effort to be more patient. I'm adopting the patience philosophy across the board. Right? So I can't just apply it to my wife. I gotta apply it to my friends. I gotta apply it to my children. I gotta apply it to any issues that I have. Just a lot more patience. And I think me being able to admit it openly, it allows me to work on it.
Exactly. Patience is a big thing because I as a kid I was very impatient, and I can't even tell you exactly when I started working on my patience, but it was a long time ago because I was very a high-tempered kid and things like that. But at some point I decided I need to work on my patience, and I'm glad I did because with kids and marriage, you need patience. Facts. Like you need patience if you're gonna have a happy home, a happy family. You got to learn to be patient with the people you're around, your family, your kids.
People who are worth it.
Yes.
I'm just keeping it a buck. People who are worth it.
That's a fact, because some people is just like, it's not worth your time to even.
It's not worth my thought. Don't care.
Yeah.
So I agree. Like I said, those type of things and being transparent and honest with yourself it's so crucial. And even when you're fighting, that's why we say fighting fair. The fairness comes in your ability to identify what you've done wrong in the situation.
That'll keep you respectful.
Exactly. That'll keep you respectful. That'll keep it honest, transparent, and there's nothing more attractive than accountability. Right? I mean, what's more attractive than somebody going, yo, listen, I messed up. Sorry. You know what I mean? I'm working on it, and don't just say, oh, I'm working on it. Tell them how you're working on it.
Exactly.
How you working
on it. Let them know.
How you working on it? And what happens is what they'll start to do is help you work on it because they care about you, right? That's why we say do it with people who you're close to because they'll help you work on it. And
even while being accountable, let's say, because there are relationships where both people aren't accountable, the best way to go about basically having an even playing field, continue being that person. Now, you by showing it. Let's say somebody's not accountable. Just imagine every issue you're always accountable, and they see that, and it kind of rubs off on them. And it's like, wow, dang, they really was saying how they was wrong on that. Maybe I should really start looking at myself. Maybe I did mess up right here. And then you'll start to see that change in that person where, because think about it, if you're married, you're together all the time, and you guys are having issues. If you're always doing like, yo, babe, you know what? I see where you was coming from. This is what I thought. And I was thinking this. At some point, she's not going to yell back like, yeah, you was. At some point, she's going to say, you know what? Yeah, you was right. I see why you thought like that. Because when I said this, it sounds like that. You know what I'm saying? So always don't stoop down, in a sense. Don't lower your standards because of who you're with. Keep that accountability. And even before you get married, if you see that they just have no accountability at all, don't expect it when you get married.
Or don't get married. No, I'm joking.
Don't expect it. I'm telling you now. Don't expect it.
You were speaking that just now, and me obviously thinking always mad deep in this stuff. As you talking, I'm thinking about myself, oh my God, this makes so much sense. So this is how you fight fair.
Yeah.
And this is something I'm about to adopt to. Whenever you're about to get into an argument, state what you did wrong before what you have to say to the other person. Both parties. Write it down. Write it down. Be like, yo, we're arguing right now. Okay, this is what I did wrong. You both come with what you did wrong individually. Right? This is where I'm struggling. This is what I did wrong. And I just want to say, from my perspective, this is where I'm weak at right now. This is where I'm struggling. Right?
Yeah, that's a healthy argument right there.
Bring those two first. Address that. Be vulnerable, because that'll open you up to be vulnerable. So the communication will be a lot different. Then, if you have a problem with what they're doing, which you never know, they might just identify it in what they said. So you don't even have to regurgitate it in rubber womb. Because there's nothing worse than somebody, if somebody doesn't take accountability, or they don't think about certain things, or it bothers them and they don't say anything, there's nothing worse than another person coming in and saying, you know what? Like, if I think I'm dumb, it's somebody like, yeah, you dumb. Like, you like, no, I'm not dumb, but you thought it, right? So, so I think fighting fair, ultimately what it comes down to is both parties address what they did wrong in the situation every time. Don't skip a beat. Every time. This is the format of our arguments. We both bring our faults to the forefront. Cool. Once we put out our faults up front, now I can say, if you miss something from what you said, then I can say, okay, let me just let you know what else bothered me about that. But more than likely, it's gonna fall under that umbrella of what they said.
Exactly, because you're always taking accountability.
I love it. That was dope. Wait, that literally just came to me as you were speaking. I'm not joking.
I like that. I like that.
Now on, when you're about to argue with your spouse, your partner, you must write down what you did wrong in the situation. Before you could address anybody, tell me what you did wrong. Then we'll go from there. Once we start doing that, it'll change the dynamic of the argument. And then what'll happen is, you can ask effective questions that can get to the root of the issue, because that's all it is. All of it is rooted in something deeper than we're probably thinking, whether it's cultural influence, whether it's issues we've never dealt with before, or issues that, that are arising as you evolve. But as long as you identify that first up front, I think we could have some really healthy dialogue, and the playing field will be even. And you never know, it might turn into a session of growth, which probably like.
I got a side note too. This is very important. If you are in a fight, are in an argument, and you're married, there is no running back home to your mother and your father.
Please stay away from
that. That needs to stop. That happens too much. I hear it too much. If you guys are in it, this might be one of them clips that Marital got to take out, because this is a big issue.
No, go ahead, go on.
Why are you fighting or in a dispute with your husband and you're going to your parents' house, let me tell you why that's an issue. Because you're going to your parents' house, they are going to side with you.
Always.
They're going to side with you. So you're never really getting the real correction that you need.
Mm-hmm.
When you have an issue within your marriage, you need to deal with that marriage. That's why we said it's very helpful if you can find another couple that's married that don't have biased views, where you can go to and have real communication, and they give you typical and outcomes that can help you.
That really care about you. That's what it comes down to. People that really care about you. But go ahead.
Yeah, because if I'm beefing with my wife, if I go to my mom, I'm her baby. She's not going to tell me if I'm wrong. She's going to be like, yeah, you know, I always knew that girl, blah, blah, blah.
Like, yo, you still talking about my wife.
Any issue. Yeah, that's your wife. And then you can be like, yeah, I know, you know. I've never brought any slightest argument or anything to my mom because I know she's going to take my side. There is no, I'm running back. If you live near your parents' house, I'm staying the night at my parents' house.
You better go sleep on the couch. You better go sleep in
you better go on the couch. You staying in that house.
Facts.
Because those are little seeds. So now you know, oh, whenever we get into a fight, I'm running back to mommy. You're never going to grow. That marriage is never going to grow because there's always a safety net.
And it's not even a safety net. It's really a curse.
Yeah.
Not a safety to be honest. A safety net would be somebody who would tell you when you pull up at the door, I just got into an argument, blah, blah,
go back home.
Go back home and go figure that out. You could have called me for that. If that's the case. If it was that severe, you could have called me for that. Right? That's not a safety net. That's poison.
Yeah.
That's poison. And for all the people who don't conduct themselves like adults and just deal with problems as they come and want to run back to their parents, grow up.
That's a fact. Stop running back home.
Grow up.
Stop running home.
Grow up. I like that. That was dope though. But yeah, for real. I got another one more. So the initiation process. I mean, like, all right. So we're gonna use sex as an analogy, right? But when we speak on it, we're just talking about vulnerability and being able to open up in the sense of mentally, physically, all the things that fall under the initiation. So so obviously men's view of sex is maybe different than women's. I'm not a woman, so I can't speak on
it might
that.
be.
This is not definite because I'm pretty sure women have their own views, but men like this. I guess this is for women. Men like a woman who initiates too. That's right. A fact. We're aggressive. You know, cool. Yeah, that's dope. We don't get it twisted. We are go getters. You know what I mean? We're gonna go get it.
That's right. But there are those times when I want you.
Yeah, like can you come, you know what I mean? Grope on a brother, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like let me know that I'm wanted to. And guys won't admit it, you know, because it's like, oh, it makes you soft. But no, it don't make you soft. It's what you expect out of your woman. Like, why do you think, like, when a man sees, or let's just say, you can use porn as an example, when women are mad aggressive in porn, guys like that.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. They like that. It's not so much of the sex part they like the action of it. And if we're talking about healthy marriages and challenging marriage, sex is definitely, you know, sometimes it's a challenge for people. Right? And
go ahead.
You just have to consider what is acceptable sex behavior and what is acceptable sex language and what type of mentality do you have when it comes to sex as far as your wife or your husband, right? So I guess what would be your philosophy on that part of it?
It's definitely important to have those conversations. Cause like me and my wife, we've had those conversations.
Me too. 100%.
You have to, because you have to let it be known what you expect and what you need, what your needs are. Because if you don't, once again, that's something that's going to build up, and that leads to that dark place that we don't even like to talk about, that adultery.
That's forbidden fruit, Eve.
Yeah, that's one thing we don't. So you have to be able to communicate with your wife, like, babe, I need it often. This is something that keeps me sane.
Facts.
You know?
Facts.
Like, I don't want to feel
like I'm begging.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to feel like I'm not getting it enough. I don't want to feel like single people are getting it more than me. And I'll sleep with the bed with you every night. That's that stigma where when you get married, the sex drops. No, we need to make sure that doesn't happen.
No, that's never an option. And I will say this, because I've heard women say, like, well, what if I'm not in the mood? right?
Mm-hmm.
Let me just give you a
Mm-hmm.
forecast of how men think, right?
Mm-hmm.
Men are very simple.
Yeah.
Food, sex, sleep, TB, maybe. Family, all right? Very,
Fact.
very basic. And
Uh.
sex being a priority,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I get it. I get it. Sometimes you're tired. Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
you're not in the mood. I get it. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
negating that. But where men draw a problem is this, right? If you tell me you're not in the mood, but you're on your phone, but you could put time into all these other things,
Mm.
that's where we draw a problem. Because it's like,
Yeah.
yo, how you saying you're not in the mood, but you could invest in a Beyonce video for 30
Mm-hmm.
minutes, or you could
Mm-hmm.
be on your phone playing again. Now, look, if it's whack, then just say it's whack. Like, no,
Yeah.
I'm not feeling you
Yeah.
right now. Like,
Yeah.
this ain't popping the way I thought. But if it's popping and y'all having a good time, like those type of things can cause a friction in marriages, because you have to
Mm-hmm.
remember, we're watching you guys,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So anybody, common sense says you put the energy into what you want to put the energy into.
Mm-hmm.
And if you feel like I'm tired, or it means to us that
Mm-hmm.
you're not putting the right amount of energy into me, meaning your
Mm-hmm.
husband,
Yeah.
because how could we have a healthy relationship if you don't put the energy into me? Now,
Mm.
you could say it's not all about sex, but you have to remember women are wired different than men. So
Mm-hmm.
to vice versa, a woman loves to be hugged on, loved on, kissed
Yeah.
on, right?
Yeah.
So when a man doesn't do that, what happens? A
Mm.
woman is turned off, right? So it's the
Mm.
same exact thing. It's just that men address sex, women address the affection, right?
Yeah.
Sex is not
Yeah.
affection. It's not the same thing. But for men, sex is affection. For women, kissing and loving and touching and
Yeah. Yeah.
compliments, all those things, that's affection. So you have to keep that in mind as the initiator. So if you know that, okay, my wife is a woman and she likes this. She
Mm-hmm.
likes when I
Mm-hmm.
come behind her and I be feeling on, kissing on her neck.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that might not be
Exactly.
sex. That might not be
Yeah.
sex, but it's cool, because at the end of the day, it's not sex is not about you. It's about your party, your
Exactly.
partner, right? Not saying you shouldn't be pleased, but at the same time, you have to remember, like,
Put your own effort in too.
exactly, it's an
Mm-hmm.
effort. It's an effort thing. That's all it is,
Mm-hmm.
an effort thing.
Mm-hmm.
So when you lack that effort, it's felt. It's
Mm-hmm.
felt. Any man that's invested fully into his woman, it's felt when there's no effort, and that's a
Mm-hmm.
problem for us, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially if the man puts in effort. I'm not talking about these scrubs out here that got that philosophy. Oh yeah, if I don't get it from my wife, I'm gonna get it from. I'm not talking about those scrubs. I'm not talking about those
Yeah.
bozos, right? Those
Yeah.
cornballs, losers, kick
Yeah.
rocks. We're not talking about that.
Yeah.
We're talking about real men who are invested fully in their family and especially their wives.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
And I had the conversation with my wife. I told her, and it was deep for me. And I told her I don't want to allow anything else to be able to arouse me.
facts.
I only want you. So we had that conversation where I told her I'm not okay with watching porn.
Yeah, no way.
I don't want to watch porn
I'm good.
because I need to get off.
Yeah, like that
You
sounds
know?
crazy. No, I'm
Yeah,
good.
we had that. Some people they feel like they need to do that, but for me, in marriages, I feel like you shouldn't watch porn because that's another outlet that of arousal that only your wife should have access to.
That's adultery. Adultery isn't, I mean, we'll
Yeah,
touch on it for a
yeah,
second, but adultery
yeah,
isn't the physical aspect. That's the
yeah,
consequence of the
yeah,
mentality,
yeah.
right? You got to understand what adultery is. Adultery starts actually in the
In
mind.
the mind,
The
yeah,
sex part
yeah,
is just simply the action. It's the
mm-hmm,
consequence of the violation in the mind. Don't get it
yeah,
twisted.
yeah,
Everything starts in your mind.
mm-hmm,
Anything that comes out of your mind is just the consequence or the repercussions of it.
mm-hmm.
Right. If you want me to explain another one, the seed you bear. It's the same exact
Exactly,
process. The
exactly.
seed is planted in your mind. The outward appearance is just what is born within. So if
Mm-hmm.
you violate, it starts
Yeah.
with the
The
Instagram,
mind,
the
your
big
mind. You
videos.
on porn, you on all that. All where do you think that's gonna lead to?
Yeah, at least the
Like your
violation.
mom, your wife will never be able to satisfy you
Never, never.
because
And
you
then
have ultimate access to that.
I would say this too, women, consider this. Let's say this out loud.
Mm-hmm.
I'm tired,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't want I don't want to have sex with my husband right now, right?
Mm.
Like I hear you.
Yeah.
I hear you in retrospect,
Yeah.
but consider this: men will always be hunters, if that's the best way to put it.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
gonna hunt. We're gonna go for what we want for. We're gonna
Mm-hmm.
go for what we want. But consider this option, right? If you try to dictate to a hunter what he can hunt and try to steer it according to what you want, two things will either happen. He doesn't want to hunt anymore, or he doesn't,
that's true.
or he doesn't want to hunt anymore. Because remember, we're not gonna. We're talking about real men. We're not talking about the ones that's gonna violate. So what'll happen is eventually he'll just stop hunting you.
Yeah, you lose that drive.
I lose that drive for you. I don't want you anymore. I'm good. You know what I mean? Like I'm good. Because remember, it's all a mentality. So the same way I convinced and I chose to want you on a consistent basis, I could simply say to myself, you know what? It's over. I'm good.
Yeah.
Good. I don't want no sex. You know what? I'm not even gonna cheat on you. I just don't want to have sex with you.
Yeah, and that's a terrible place to be.
Terrible place to be. And you don't want that for your marriage. You don't want that for your husband. You don't want that for anybody. Because if you're trying to dictate when it's okay and when it's not okay, you're gonna find yourself in a bad situation. Because if a man views y'all bodies as one, anytime you get around him, he's going to want you.
Yeah, that's a fact.
I don't hate to say it, but it's just the truth.
That's a fact.
We're one. So I want, anytime I'm around you, I'm gonna want you. And when I say guys, I'm speaking of God, we're gonna want to have sex. I'm around you. Your presence turns me on.
Exactly. And that's what I want. I don't want there be a substitute.
Yeah. Why
I want you to have total access to my arousal.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I would think that a woman should adopt that philosophy. Not saying that, remember, we don't want it to be forced. You know, if you're not into it, then maybe you just need to say, I'm not into it. And then y'all just got to figure that out from there. But for the men who are fully invested, I promise you, they're going to want their wife every day.
Yeah, just about.
I mean, unless y'all both just dead tired. Put it like this. Even if you're not in the mood, let's see if he can get you in the mood. Right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Allow him. Don't block him from attempting. Be like, I'm not in the mood, babe. Just stop. Give him the chance. Don't tell him stop. Give him the chance. Like, and fellas too, I know some fellas be tired. Yo, if you tired and your wife is trying to get right, don't push her away.
Nah,
it has an effect.
Don't, and this has to be a rule of thumb. Don't ever push your spouse away.
No, don't do that. Don't
ever. Don't ever. Don't ever. Listen, even if you tired, just lay there. I'm not gonna say like it's like rape, because it's not. Like, it's not crazy. When I say that, I mean understanding the dynamics of your relationship. Like, I know I'm tired.
But I have to do this for you.
He's trying to get busy. Yeah. Like, I have two rules that you could abide by. Women's job, every time we get up, it's your job to get it down. Men's job, if she's not in the mood, give him a chance to get you in the mood. Yeah. If it don't work, then be like, yo, you tried. Epic failure. We're good. But you have to put the effort forward to let that happen. It's an effort thing, right? Exactly. And ultimately, it'll be healthy for you guys. Honestly, I've never heard of a bad marriage that had a lot of sex and intimacy in it.
That's true.
I never heard it. I never said, yo, man, listen, we be just having so much sex, it just made me depressed. Like my husband stay feeling on my booty, kissing on my neck, like dang, man, I feel mad sad. I've never heard that before. And maybe I'm bugging, but I never heard that. So that we use sex as an analogy, but it's really, it's just a mentality of initiating and putting effort forward. Initiation is just effort. Put the effort. We say sex because that obviously is a major topic and people struggle in that area, and we're talking about the challenges.
Make the effort in all areas: communication, your finances, figuring things out, making decisions. You should all both be having input in everything within the marriage.
That's a fact. And I think even with that, you have to, for you to even have an even playing field in your marriage, you have to take accountability and want to grow. That's really what it comes down to. I don't see any other way. And I think when you choose to get married, the process of marriage is a lifelong process. Right? And I'm not saying we're perfect, and I'm not saying you have to be perfect. What we're saying is strive to be perfect. So even if you fall short, you're your ranking is still up there. Or strive
Yeah.
for perfection, you fall short, you're still excellent. You know my motto.
That's it.
But let's just leave them with the principles of arguments. The number one that we came out with, and this literally just came. Both parties bring what they did wrong in that situation to the table before any kind of discussion about the other person happens. That'll be one for arguments.
Yep.
2, cultural influences. At this point, you're married, you're an adult.
Yep.
Those things are not an excuse anymore.
Nope.
No more excuses. No excuses.
Sir.
And then the last one is the initiation process, the effort, right?
Yeah, put that effort in, man. You have to. You can't. I look at it like this. When you get married, right, you're constantly doing other things. You're putting effort towards your job. You're putting effort towards these things. You have to put the same effort into marriage. You can't just leave that. Yeah, you can't just leave that. All right, that's done. Let me work on my career. Let me work on my investments. Let me work on this. No, that marriage is not done. When you get married, it's not, all right, got that out the way. Let me pursue this. Let me pursue that. No, that marriage still has to be a forefront.
That is the foundation of your success.
Exactly.
That marriage will be the foundation of your success if you're married, obviously. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're not talking about girlfriend and boyfriend for 10 years. We're not talking about that. We're not talking to y'all. We're not talking to the cheaters. Take it how you want it. We're not talking to y'all. This has nothing. This is grown folks' business. You know what I'm saying? This for adults, right? This for the married folks who trying to get this right. We're not talking
fact.
The other one.
Fact.
But no, I agree with you. That process of making sure that home, your spouse, and your family is the most important thing in your life after God.
Yeah.
That'll be the key to a healthy marriage. And obviously we were talking about the challenges today, and we appreciate you guys. We know it's going to be some ups and downs. We told you the forbidden law.
Yeah.
Right. We didn't address it fully, but just understand it starts in the mental aspect.
Yeah. Those
don't
little
cheat.
things.
Don't cheat in your mind.
Don't always keep working on your marriage. Don't get comfortable. Don't settle within your marriage.
No.
Always keep striving, like you said, for perfection. We know nobody's perfect, but if you're striving for, like they always say, shoot for the stars. If anything, you land on the moon.
Facts.
It's the same concept. Strive for perfection, so that if you fail from perfection, you still gonna be all right.
Still, your standards are still up higher than the most.
That's what I'm saying.
Right, and obviously, we just want to give you guys every aspect of marriage because it means a lot to us, right?
Yeah.
You know, the challenges are just challenges. You can get through them. You have to work. You got to put the effort forward, and above all, and this is not me trying to be stereotypical or anything like that. The principles that guide marriage are from God.
Yeah.
Right. Yep. You have to seek His wisdom to have an effective marriage.
Yeah.
Right. Don't overlook that. Don't think you can do it by yourself. We're speaking about these things, but you have to understand it comes from our relationship with God and really asking Him what we need to do right. And I'm not talking about praying and then going, God told me this. No. We're not talking.
Yeah.
We're saying pray, look up what marriage is supposed to be biblically. What are the principles that govern it, and apply those daily. Remember, words mean nothing. One action, okay? Patterns. Patterns. If you keep a positive pattern, you'll have a positive life. You'll have a great marriage. And before you know, we're going to have mad communities out here.
That's it.
With these healthy marriages. And we're going to look at each other like, yo, good job, my boy.
We can guarantee that these principles work.
Facts. But we appreciate you guys.
Yep.
Log in, subscribe. Shouts out to iTunes, Spotify, YouTube,
all of that. Comments. You know what I'm gonna do too? Because what episode? We close to 20 episodes, and we've been going strong. On the 20th episode, everyone that's ever commented on the YouTube page or anything, I'm gonna give them a shout out. Because I appreciate it. A lot of people don't comment. So I'm going to show y'all love for showing love.
Give a shout out and see and just ask them, if they got any direct questions they want to answer. Because we'll do a recap of, after the 20th episode to really, before we get into our new our new information that we're gonna be
new
our new
series.
agenda, new series and all that good stuff.
Yes,
But I
sir.
appreciate you guys. You got anything to say to the people?
There's gonna be ups and downs in your marriages.
In life.
It's not gonna be perfect.
Facts.
But through all the ups and downs, if you want to be successful, keep God before anything.
And I mean, we've been talking about this anyway, but strive for perfection.
Mm-hmm.
That process will ultimately, at least the minimum, leave you excellent. But I would say this too, since we're talking about marriages, there might not be a perfect individual, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I do believe there can be a perfect marriage in the sense of obeying concepts.
Yep.
Right? Yep. So just keep that in mind, and we will see you guys next week. Holla.
Yep.